the masculine works more in structures and that the feminine works more in flow. The patriarchy builds structures to stop the feminine. So
The toxic patriarch.
if you think of the feminine as a river, the masculine can either do two things. It can build a dam, which is stopping the feminine, or it can build a bridge over the river. Either stop the flow or it can support the flow.
Beloved heart, before we begin, I have a special gift for you. If you've been feeling the intensity of Earth's rising plasma light codes and want to stay centered in your body and heart and energy field, I've created a free light language quantum grounding activation just for you. This transmission will help you stabilize, integrate, and align with the new frequencies flowing onto the planet. Simply join my mailing list. See the link that's in the show notes to receive instant access. Let's ground into the light together.
This is the transfiguration of the new you. Hello, welcome back to my podcast here at Ascended Earth. I'm Monica Bermudez. I'm your host, and I am grateful to introduce a whole new guest here with us. Today's conversation is one of those that I believe will be deeply important, not just for men, but for all of us, really. Whether you're a man who learned to suppress your emotions to appear strong, or a woman who learned to silence your own needs to keep the peace, self-abandonment wears many different faces. The underlying wound is often the same, and I think you'll find something meaningful in this conversation that we're about to have. So, in my work, working with both men and women, I've seen a common thread. So many people disconnect from their authentic selves in order to feel safe, accepted, loved, or worthy. We learn to suppress our emotions, silence our truth, and become who we think we're supposed to be. And over time, that self-abandonment can show up as anxiety, burnout, resentment, depression, or a loss of purpose, or simply the feeling that something essential is missing. Healing isn't about becoming someone different. It's about remembering who you were before you believed you had that hide those parts of yourself. And there's more to you than just meets the eye. And it is a return to this authenticity, a wholeness, and self-trust. And today we're going to explore what self-abandonment looks like, why so many men experience it, and how it impacts relationships, mental health, and purpose, and why this conversation is just as relevant for women seeking to understand themselves and the people they love. I'm excited to welcome our special guest here, Erick Pettersen, who has dedicated his work to helping men reconnect with themselves and create lives rooted in authenticity rather than expectation. So please join me in welcoming our guest to the show. And Erick is an identity calibration coach. He's a writer, founder of the Maverick Brotherhood. His work focuses on helping people reconnect with themselves by exploring the relationships between identity, self-awareness, emotional healing, and authentic living. So I would love to welcome you here, Erick, to our show.
Thank you, Monica. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes, our pleasure to have you here to share this conversation with so many who need to hear this right now. So tell us, how you got started doing what you're doing and what was the reason behind all of this.
Well, how I got started was I noticed my own gap. I noticed my own shame. I went through, well, how it started is I went through, I read a book, Daring Greatly by Brene Brown, Dr. Brene Brown. And while I was reading that book, I recognized something about myself. And that was that I had a shame identity. And so, everything from my childhood on up, I realized was surrounded around this shame that I had kind of built as a suit of armor around myself. And so I decided I needed to do the deep work to begin to heal, go through that healing process and that. So, I went through a coaching program, which included, various conferences, going to conferences, mindset conferences, and that, and that really helped to begin the process. And then I continued on and just I got my coaching certification through that same program. And so then, I stepped into coaching, but really where this came in, what I do now, the Mindset Maverick, it came from a process. I felt the whole time I need a process in that. So the process, as I continued to go through my own healing process, I just thought about how can I take other people through that same process? What does that look like? And so that's really how the Mindset Maverick was born.
Oh, okay. If you don't mind like sharing what is that, what is the mindset maverick? Maybe just, expand a little more, explanation on it.
Okay, absolutely. Well, the mindset maverick is really about it's really about finding the gaps in people, helping them to recognize their own gaps as far as nervous system healing and that. What I really do is help people see where their gaps are, what's holding them back, what their blind spots are. And then, I help them recalibrate. So when I say recalibrate, what I mean is that I help them set up the somatic work. So I help them, whatever that process, that program looks like, whether it's breath work, whether it's meditation, certain meditation, or whatever it is, tapping, whatever it is, that will release those low vibration emotions. So that's really why I focus on is what are those low vibration emotions that are stuck in your nervous system that you need to release in your body, that you need to release. And the reason I call them low vibration emotions is because there's no such thing as negative emotions. All emotions hold information, and that is just those emotions like anger, jealousy, and that we don't want to let those emotions control us. We don't want emotions to, we want to be able to look at emotions as information. What information can we take with them? How should I respond to them? So really that's what I help people do is I help them recalibrate their nervous systems so that they're responding to their emotions in a healthier way.
To a more balanced and control way of like, so what have been some of the most common themes as far as like men's mental health lately?
Oh wow. Um the most common themes as far as men's mental health. Wow, that's a good question. I would say the most common themes would be um, feeling alone. Uh,
Mhm.
and that I think that would be a big one. Would be feeling alone and feeling like you're the only one going through the process. Or the only I shouldn't say the only one going through the process. I should say the only one uh struggling with your specific journey and that and so that and that's a big reason why I'm setting up the Maverick Brotherhood is I want men specifically to know, and women of course also, but within the Maverick Brotherhood I want men to know whatever their struggle is, they're not alone. So and it's about finding those other men and that and that accountability.
Yeah, and it's also important to know that for many eons now, we've had the toxic patriarch energy
Exactly.
where men had to be strong and the one to provide everything, right? So I can imagine that this has probably brought up a lot of patterns and painful patterns, I would say, that have been low vibrational
Yeah.
emotion, impact.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
which and what kind of, with the most common theme being, I would suppose, the self-abandonment. And have you found that, where can men get, the support or, hear from you what they need to hear right now, as far as that's concerned.
Right, right. As far as that support, I just recently, in fact, started a Substack. So people can find me on Substack now. I haven't posted anything, but I'm planning to here soon. But yeah, and then also the Maverick Brotherhood. As far as on Instagram, there's my link on Instagram, in that people can click on that to sign up for my newsletter and whatnot. But as far as support, I'm just sending out weekly content in that, and I'm always open to people, just contacting me, and I can support them one on one.
Yeah, so maybe you could share some insight here. Like, what will be the biggest tip you will give a man or somebody who's listening right now who's feeling like self-abandoned?
For a man who's feeling self-abandoned, my biggest tip to you, and this is such an easy thing to do, but it's one of those really easy things to do that if you do it consistently, it will pivot your mindset. And that is, look at yourself in the mirror every day and say to yourself, say, I love you, I'm proud of you, and I'm proud to be you. You do that consistently, day after day, and you can add on other things. You're amazing, you're wonderful, whatever. And that and we complicate things. I think, we think, oh, I have to do all these different things. If you do that one thing consistently, like every day, and at first it might be like, I really don't feel like it today. But, after a while, I'll just look in the mirror, I'll be like, hey, beautiful, how are you doing today? You know?
Mm-hmm.
So, you just keep doing that day after day. And the more and more you do it, the
Mm-hmm.
more and more supported, guided, and held, that's even in the unknown. Can you hear that?
Yes.
Yeah. I have my phone set up so it gives me affirmations. Also, it tells me affirmations. So that's another.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that's another one you could do. I forgot about that.
Well,
So
it's a good timing though to come in like that for a tip.
yeah.
Program your own self affirmations on a daily basis.
Exactly, exactly. So, I always have that, like, whether I say them, in the mirror, whatever, I'm always saying affirmations, listening to affirmations and all that. You just do those, and that it's going to reset your mindset, just over time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, so a constant reprogramming of self.
exactly.
Yeah, so what would you advise someone who's trying to avoid conflict, who's having that hidden cost of like self-abandonment?
As far as someone who doesn't want to abandon themselves, as far as when they get into a conflict, how they should respond.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. As far as that goes, I would put yourself first. I would put your needs first in that, and that goes to the gap. Is when that conflict comes up, how does that conflict make you feel? Have you experienced it before? And just realize that if you avoid that conflict, or if you kind of maneuver yourself around that conflict, that you're going to stay in the same pattern. And so the key really is to repattern yourself. So
Mm-hmm.
when that conflict comes up, with another person or whatever, um, it's an opportunity. Look at it as an opportunity to repattern yourself, to set a new pattern, whether that's setting boundaries with someone or whatever it is, and that just look at it as an opportunity to just really um, just, I guess, change the trajectory and
Mhm.
that, and to, step into a new, healthier identity.
Yeah, so that's good. Yeah, for sure, like repatterning, reprogramming yourself to
Yeah.
repatternize yourself from the the conflict itself so
Mm.
that you're not really avoiding it, right?
Yeah.
Because this is part of the abandonment is to avoid it. It's in order to like keep the peace, but
Exactly.
in fact, what it's doing, it's burying the toxic energy or what you may call the low vibrational aspect
Right.
of this, it gets buried in the subconscious.
Right.
And then it just bursts into something else later, like a
Right.
imbalance, relationship, unhealthy relationships. Um, so what would you like, how would you guide a man, like from your experience who has learned to abandon themselves in order to be like just accepted or to gain approval? What would you say about that? If they're doing it just so that they will be like approved or, feel like they're worthy just by not, by abandoning themselves and be accepted, I guess, in a circle or in a relationship or with someone else or something.
Right. That's really a big one, because I've gone through that myself,
Mm-hmm.
in various group settings. Um, when it's when it's come in a larger group setting like that, I would say step away from the group. I would say, is being part of the group, is it serving you? Is it allowing you to be your authentic self? Or when you step into that group, whatever the group setting looks like, in that, or do you have to change who you are? Do you have to abandon yourself when you step into that group? Uh, because I'm sorry, I didn't know there were going to be so many interruptions. So, anyways, as as far as that, I would say, just get into a setting where you can stay authentic to yourself. If that means stepping out of, the setting where you are, step out of that setting, and just focus on yourself, focus on being your authentic self. So yeah.
Yeah. And what do you mean by authentic self? What does authentic self mean to you?
um as far as being your authentic self, I would say that goes to your reaction time. I would say that goes to, how does your authentic self react? What does your authentic self look like? And that, I would say, as far as being your authentic self, and I think, it's good, because I don't know as if you can hear them. I think that I'm not right now in the best environment. I wasn't expecting all of these interruptions that I'm getting, and that, so all of these, but see, so right now it's causing me within this conversation to have to stabilize myself more,
Mm-hmm.
because you know I'm like trying to ignore this and that and this that I was not expecting. But in a way, maybe that's, a test, um about stabilizing my own nervous system, and that, and I think that's really your authentic self, is when all these interruptions come up in your
Mm-hmm.
life, whether it's a relationship, with someone, and that, whether it's, whatever you weren't expecting to come up, as it's really about your core. It's really about maintaining your authentic identity, and that, and not allowing those surrounding noises, those surrounding distractions, to knock you off balance.
Yeah, I like that because it sounds like meditation also. We have the monkey mind.
Exactly.
It's easy to get distracted by the noise
Exactly.
around the surrounding environment, like literally,
Yeah.
and get you out of the
Yep.
focus, where your energy is being focused right now, and
Exactly.
being in the presence, in other words, is what you're describing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, that's good. Um, let's say though there's someone who is not really aware of this pattern of abandonment. So what would be like some signs that you may be suffering from self-abandonment? Beloved, if you're craving deeper connection, intuitive expansion, and consistent energetic support, join me inside the Frequency Resonance Lounge. This is a monthly Master Heart Circle moon ceremonies that includes the full and new moon, and a private community for connections. Link is in the show notes.
Some signs of suffering from self-abandonment. I would say notice where you change. Notice those environments where you change, and that notice where you become different. And that is, do you act one way when you're in a group, in a group with friends, than you do when you're in alone or in a relationship? Because there's something that you're abandoning who you are. You're abandoning yourself, in that within one of those scenarios. So as far as recognizing who you are, that goes to what you just spoke of, is meditation is really, and I tell people, as far as who they are, knowing who you are, set your core values. And that, what are your core values, and live by those core values. And from there, what scenarios allow you to stay in your core values, allow you to really live by your core values. And if there's scenarios that where you have to step out of your core values, or you don't live by your core values, you know um, those are either scenarios or relationships, whatever, that you have to think, is this the best place for me to be? Is this the best uh, person, relationship for me to be with or be in?
Yeah, okay. That's a good one.
Yeah,
So in fact, it's like setting those healthy boundaries to your core values.
exactly.
Yeah, I like that. Um, Now we're probably gonna get a little wild here and talk about talk about divine feminine energy and divine masculine energy, because I know that this is in both of us. I mean,
Mhm.
both of them are in the energy. Both of the energies are in men and women, and so what I've been noticing, and maybe you've noticed this too, is that divine feminine energy is rising a lot more.
Yeah.
But what she's bringing with her is also a new redefinition, I would say, of divine masculine archetype.
Mm,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, so maybe you can share some thoughts, on that, what your thoughts are.
Yeah, absolutely. As far as the feminine, divine masculine, as you said, it's within all of us, and all of that. So, um, but as far as the divine feminine goes, and this really goes to the core of my work, is helping men to uh, integrate the feminine, and that into that. And I know when I say that, some people, some guys might, think, no, I don't want to be more like a woman. It's not make Do I look feminized at all? I don't. I hope I don't. I'm not the most manly man in the world, so, but
Hmm.
but it's really about, what are those aspects of the feminine that uh, we want to integrate into your life? How can we integrate them into your life? And that,
Yeah.
and It's really about, and that goes to healing your helping men heal their nervous systems, their low vibration emotions.
Yeah.
As what does it look like to integrate the feminine so that
Mm-hmm.
maybe you're not reacting, you're not flying off the handle, or if you have an addiction to something, what does it look like to integrate the feminine so that
Mm-hmm.
you
Hmm.
respond to those scenarios that may pull you into that addiction. What does it look like to just allow softness into your life and that.
Yeah. So, and I feel like, what you're describing is divine feminine in a divine masculine archetype
Mhm.
integrated,
Exactly.
it needs to have both. So,
Yeah.
how would you define like divine masculine energy?
I would define divine masculine energy as, so let's look at let's look at masculine structures. The masculine works more in structures, and that the
Mm-hmm.
feminine works more in flow. Uh, the patriarchy builds structures to stop the feminine. So
The
you've
toxic patriarch.
what's that?
The toxic patriarch.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, the so if you think of it, the feminine, if you think of the feminine as a river, the masculine can either do two things. It can it can build a dam, which is stopping the feminine,
Mm-hmm.
or it can build a bridge over the
Oh,
river.
I like
So it
that.
can either stop the flow or it can support the flow. And
Mm-hmm.
so the divine masculine supports the flow of the divine feminine.
Yes.
The what's the word I'm thinking of, the whatever the I don't, well, I don't like the term the toxic masculine,
Mm-hmm.
and that, but for a lack of better term, the toxic masculine stops the feminine.
Or maybe the shadow masculine, if you want
The
to call
shadow,
it that.
I like that. I like that better. The shadow masculine stops
Mm-hmm.
the feminine. The divine masculine builds that bridge
Hmm.
to support the flow.
Yes.
That, yeah.
Well, I love the analogy that you used about the bridge and the dam.
Oh well,
But
thank you.
yeah, but that's the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's something that we're coming out of shadow patriarch, let's call it, and I feel like that we're redefining the entire planet society based on now like what I'll call divine patriarch out of, because the divine feminine also comes divine mother. Um,
Mhm.
so there's this whole restructuring or rebuilding or reformatting. I guess maybe that's the energy. That's the energy for it, reformatting the energy.
Yes.
But yeah, so I mean, and I feel like so many of us, have based on, I guess I'll call it the old earth, have conformed so much to that shadow patriarch that it even like went into like women, who became so aggressive, with everything. And I know that for me particular, I had too much of the shadow masculine, the shadow patriarch energy inside of me. And so I had to relearn how to embody my sacred feminine energy through a lot of my own inner work, shadow work, and own healing when I went after like, my biggest catalyst being my divorce. So I had to like really rebalance myself in that way and to like embrace more of that divine feminine energy because it's not something that's taught in school, you know? The
Yeah.
systems that we have, our education systems are all about, it's mainly on that energy of the shadow patriarch energy, being aggressive, being competitive, being, competing with one another. And so, I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Like,
Yeah, my thoughts on that are, the patriarchy is, it's instilled, first of all, um, yeah, as you had mentioned, like the patriarchy is, it's not something that's isolated to men only. There are, it's built in the structure of everybody, in the DNA of everybody. And I think that's the biggest thing to realize, at our nervous system level. um but as far as kids growing up, it starts with simple things. It starts with, boys being raised, boys will be boys. Boys don't cry. Boys,
Hmm.
don't do this, man up, whatever,
I think there
whatever
was
it
too
is.
much of that growing up, for a lot of men. Hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And that, but that later on, that turns into, when you are a man, those sayings, whatever, change, or whatever, like being part of the man group, it changes. But the thing is that, those sayings, the one thing that they instill into a boy growing up, a boy becoming a man, is they instill into a man, a boy, whatever, growing up, they instill that to be feminine is shameful.
Hmm.
I don't want to be shameful.
Yeah.
So therefore, I'm going to act this other way. I'm going to act like a man. I'm going to act how society tells me to act like a man, because being a woman, or not, I'm sorry, but being more feminine, I'll
Hmm.
catch my words carefully, but
Yeah.
those more feminine qualities, um, are shameful. So, and as that shame in men, it also then it instills in women that,
Hmm.
women see, they are shamed for who they are. They are shamed,
Hmm.
for their softness, for, whatever, and
Hmm.
all that. So, and that's really how the patriarchy, takes hold, is that if they can, build this shame narrative, and
Hmm.
that being feminine is shameful, therefore be masculine and all that. And that's really a
Hmm.
big thing as far as what keeps the patriarchy going, is, just,
Yeah.
yeah, just building, keeping people within this cocoon of, anything out of this little circle of being masculine is shameful. If you be, have those feminine attributes, then you don't want that, because that's where shame is. So
Yeah.
stay in here, and that's the patriarchy.
Stay in that bubble because
Exactly.
being feminine is a weak point, and that was too much of that programming, I would say, for a long time. So we're undoing a lot of it within ourselves, And I would say part of that is, being aware that it's there, and that's the biggest takeaway, I guess, from all of this. Um, but it would take a lot of courage, I would say, for men to like see this without feeling like, because it's just been so many years of this engraving of like having this feminine attributes, is weak, is shameful. And
Yeah.
so where can men start, to really open up to these, things?
Yeah, as far as, opening up to these things, as far as opening up to, the feminine and all of that, um, I I would say, allow beauty into your life. And
Mm-hmm.
when I say beauty, um, recognize, I think, take the time to recognize beauty, number one. But just, it's the simplest thing. Take the time to, um, do more what you enjoy. Allow softness into your life, whether it's I love listening to the birds,
Mm-hmm.
outside. And that, the more you allow beauty into your life, that's the feminine.
Mm-hmm.
And that, and even it can be something as far as, just when you're alone in your room, dancing, singing in your room,
Mm-hmm.
in that, whatever it is. But the more you, the more you do those little things, to just allow more beauty into your life, and that, the more, you're going to feel that softness within yourself.
Yeah, I love that.
Mm.
And when you said beauty, the first image that popped into my head was Goddess Hathor. I don't know
Okay.
if
Yeah.
you're familiar with her from ancient Egypt,
Yeah.
but her symbolism is about beauty.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, so she does embody a lot of the divine feminine energy, divine mother as well. Um, and yeah, that's a great way to get started, to allow that beauty to be a part, of your life. That is the part of the activation that, she shares through her messages. So, and I know like when I like tune into your energy, it feels very like divine feminine energy, but with the divine masculine, setting those very clear like boundaries, in those areas of letting the flow, like you said, the bridge, supporting the bridge. Um,
Yeah. I just want to comment on, just make one quick comment on that. That really, as far as that goes, that really begins within. As I think it
mhm,
takes, looking at yourself, for men looking at themselves, is how can I integrate the divine feminine, and how can I build structures within my own life that are allowing the flow of the divine feminine within
mm.
my own life. So I just, I wanted to add that comment, but yes,
Yeah, that's very beautiful. Yeah, thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. I'm sure it's resonating with a lot of people. And I want to mention that before we conclude, that Erick's contact information is all in the show notes for, to reach out to him for additional support. Do you have any final thoughts for us before we conclude?
as far as final thoughts, I would, yeah, I would say that, and I know that this journey of integrating, the feminine, the divine feminine, into the masculine and all of that, I know it may be new to some people, and all of that, but I understand that because that was, everything that I've said today is something I've had to go through myself. Is I've had to leave those those groups. I've had to decide to put myself first in that and step out. As I said, this all started. My journey started when I read Dr. Brene Brown's book, Daring Greatly, and I realized um, that I was living from a shame identity. So I would say for those men, that are, for anyone who's going through this journey and you're not sure how to get started, um, the first way to get started, or the first step to getting started, is, just, whatever it is, reach out to someone for support. Look, begin meditation, and all that. Just wherever you're stuck, love yourself, I guess. Love yourself enough to say, hey, you know what, it's time for me to step into a new identity, and whatever that looks like, and that, just take that first step.
Yes, that is very beautiful. Thank you for that message. And I know it's hard, to do it, but based on what Eric just shared, these are some really, simple ways to get started and moving forward. Um, so thank you so much, Eric, for your wisdom and sharing your experience with us, and the energy that you bring, here to the show and to everybody for their own healing and everything that you're doing. Of course, I watch you on Instagram, and there's a lot of great messages that you share. It's very powerful messages. So I just want to say thank you for everything that you're doing for others.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you to the listeners as well.
Yeah, and thank you for having me.
Anytime.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to click like,
save, and share with others so they can also experience what you just experienced. And stay tuned for some more high vibe episodes. And I'll be connecting with you in the next quantum field. Sending you so much love.